We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nate Wombold. I'm the Director of Meetings and Conferences for the American Anthropological Association. I'm a white male with brown hair wearing a navy blue polo t-shirt, sitting in front of a virtual background of a library with a lot of plant life in it. I'm happy to be here today to talk to you all about the submission process for Raising Our Voices. I'd like to introduce some of my team that works with us on this big project. First, we have Nell.
Hi, everyone. I'm actually going to pause, excuse me, Nate, but I want to make sure the captioner gets assigned accordingly so we have our captions available. Okay, great. I see that our captions are going. Hi, I'm Nell. I use she, her, hers. I'm a white woman wearing thin-rimmed glasses. I've got black hair, a headset, and a white collared shirt, and a tan AAA background. I'm the AAA's Accessibility and Meetings Coordinator. If you're joining us and you need captions, please note that they are available. Go to the bottom of your screen, click on Closed Captions, and you can choose subtitle or full transcript. I will go ahead and pass it back to Nate.
Thanks, Nell. Deborah?
Yes, good morning. I'm Deborah Grandy. I am the Program Manager for all things annual meeting and conferences. I am a 62-year-old biracial female, and I am certainly open to any and all questions. So please feel free to reach out to me either by email or phone call. I will be available for your needs. Thank you. Back to Nate.
This is Nate and my Anthe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anthe Fernando. I am the program chair for this virtual series. I am an anthropologist. I teach at the University of California, Santa Cruz. And I think Nell will explain our sort of descriptions of ourselves, but I am a Sri Lankan woman with black hair wearing I'm looking at myself now, wearing a dark blue shirt. I have checkered glasses on and gold hoop earrings. And I will throw it back to Nate. I think I will say a little bit more later. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, back to Nate.
This is Nate. So just a little bit of housekeeping for how to interact with our program. What you see on your screen today is Zoom webinar. Only the panelists, those of us who have been speaking, are able to turn on our mics and our cameras. If you have questions for us, which we welcome, please look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a Q&A box. Go ahead and click on that Q&A box and type your questions in there. If you do see a chat option, we ask that you do not put any questions in that chat box. Actually, if you could, refrain from chatting while we're doing the presentation. And then once we open up questions at the end, we can interact with each other in that manner there. Other things, as Nell mentioned about the platform, if you would like to take advantage of the closed captioning for us today, you can click on the closed caption option, which on my screen appears next to the Q&A feature. Nell will be up next to talk a little bit about accessibility in a virtual environment, followed by my Anthe then about what our expectations are for the submissions for Raising Our Voices.
Hi, everyone. This is Nell. So one of the things we are really promoting and supporting and encouraging everyone during the submission process for Raising Our Voices and in a virtual environment is supporting accessibility, specifically audio and video accessibility. So that is specifically for people who are blind, low vision, deaf, hard of hearing, who have auditory processing disorders, all sorts of things. Captions or accessibility supports a lot of different groups of people. And so some of the things we're doing in that regard is we're asking people to provide visual descriptions. My Anthe noted that I would explain a bit what that means. And so those are part of our accessible introductions. You may have noticed each of us presenters today introduced ourselves with our names, our pronouns as comfortable, and a brief visual description of what we look like. This is to provide visual access to people who are blind and low vision, but also provides support for a variety of other people. We're also making sure that we have captioning available. That's available here. And so what that will mean for our submitters is to consider in the future, we'll have a lot more details about this later, but providing list of terms for captioners and potentially ASL interpreters if we have any ASL requests. But really, we're going to be providing a lot of support to help everyone who is submitting and gets accepted into the program, whether live streamed or view on demand, to create a accessible environment, to create collective access together in that all of our virtual events are fully digitally accessible, or as much to the extent possible. And so that'll include tools, tips for those who are uploading their presentations for view on demand, and tools, tips for people who will be presenting live to prepare before they get onto the live stream. I think that covers the majority of it, but I'm really open to questions and to explain anything and clarify anything. But yeah, I'll pass it back to Nate.
This is Nate. Thanks, Nell. Mayanthi, did you want to say a few words about your vision for the program for Raising Our Voices?
Sure, this is Mayanthi. I can do that. I think the more sort of formal process questions Nate will take up again, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. But I just wanted to say, generally, I really see this as an opportunity, this virtual series, as an opportunity to come together as a community or set of communities and think and work together, especially in this time of crisis, right? So we're political crisis, ecological crisis, there's a pandemic, there's a crisis of the university and higher education, racial capitalism and its effects globally and nationally. But I think there are also communities of care that are coming together and emerging, movements for justice and equity. And so I think for me, this is an opportunity to think about all of those things and what we as anthropologists have to say about all of this. How might we contribute in ways, intellectual, political, ethical, practical, to this sort of the convergence of these global crises, but also really exciting opportunities or exciting movements for justice and for equity. In terms of the virtual series, I was one of the co-organizers of Distribute 2020, which was a collaboration between the Society for Cultural Anthropology and the Society for Visual Anthropology, which was a fully virtual conference in May of 2020. And so this is the AAA virtual events is a little bit different, but part of what we're, I think, trying to do as anthropologists is to create ways to come together that don't necessarily require in-person meetings and the kind of costs associated with travel. And also the question of accessibility, as Nell pointed out. There is a way in which virtual spaces make intellectual and scholarly life possible in ways that overcome the ableist infrastructures that we're so used to. So I would see this virtual event as an opportunity for all of you to bring together a diverse set of interlocutors. One of the real opportunities of a virtual event is that it can open up the table to people who would not normally be able to attend an in-person conference, especially in the United States or Canada. So international scholars, non-anthropologists who otherwise wouldn't travel all the way for an in-person conference, activists, artists, etc., but also graduate students and contingent faculty for whom conference travel can be financially prohibited. So as you think about who you want to bring to the table, I would really think about opening up the conversation to interlocutors who may not otherwise have attended a regular AAA meeting. So think expansively about who you'd want to be in conversation with. The other, Nate, I will let you go into the various different formats that the live stream versus on demand and all of that. But I would just say that virtual meetings, I'm not going to call it a conference, but virtual events also allow for creativity in form. And so within the formats that we have chosen, that the AAA has chosen for this virtual series, I would encourage all of you to think really creatively about what you want to do And just to give you an example, I've been talking to someone who is interested in putting together, he is an ethnomusicologist. He's interested in putting together a round table that would bring together a number of ethnomusicologists, and they would actually play some of their, they would play live and discuss what they're playing, right? So you know, if you, it's a way for you to think creatively about the form. In terms of I will say a little bit about live streamed events. Nate, do you want me to go into this now, or do you want to sort of, yeah, okay. I think of the live streamed events, which can be roundtables, debates, or interviews, almost like Anthro TV, right? So who do you want to sort of, when you turn on your Zoom connection or your webinar, what kinds of conversations do you want to see? What kinds of conversations do you want to be a part of? And I also see this as an opportunity, the live streamed events, not so much to present formal papers, right? There will be no presentation, no reading of papers, but rather an opportunity to come together and work through some ideas in progress. So it's really an opportunity for conversation, to think together with a diverse set of interlocutors rather than present formal papers. So as you think about the kinds of submissions you want, or as you think about the submission process, really think about who you want to be in conversation with, what kind of conversations you want to have, how you want to think through your work, and how you want to bring your research to bear on some of these pressing global and national questions. I would also say it's pretty low commitment in terms of the whole process. There's no paper to write in November. There's no paper abstract to write now. What we need is an abstract of the event itself. So, you know, what are you going to do in your roundtable? What kind of interviews are you proposing? What sort of debate? But there's no. It's much lower commitment in some ways. I would say, though, if you're planning a roundtable, or an interview, or whatever you're doing, you want to have someone guiding the conversation. So a moderator or kind of conversation manager or guide, so that it doesn't, you know, get too meandering and aimless, because at the end of the day, we know how academics are. So, so someone to just sort of keep things in check, pose questions, steer the conversation. And also I would just say leave room for question and answer time. So the live stream sessions are all 60 minutes. Think about leaving, you know, 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A from the audience. I think Nate and we're also planning other kind of more informal spaces for conversation, but the sessions themselves will be 60 minutes in there. And I think Nate will say a little bit more about this later, but which is why you need a guide to make sure that the conversation is going where you're, you know, you want it to be directed, but also that it ends on time. So I will stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just want to highlight that I think this is a real opportunity for us as anthropologists. I think it's, you know, really, it's a great opportunity to do something a little bit more informal, a little bit more works in progress, a little bit more community oriented. And so that's kind of my vision for this virtual series in the fall. So I will throw it back to Nate.
This is Nate. Thanks so much, Mayanthi. That was great. As Mayanthi said, this is a really different experience than an annual meeting. And you'll see all over everything we send you and all over all of our web pages, we've tried to get away from any language that's reminiscent of annual meeting. So the first thing I want to do is I'll start sharing my screen. And I want to guide you all to a couple of places on our website that can really help you as you begin to ideate and create your submissions for raising our voices. So one moment while I share the screen here. All right, so can everyone see AAA's homepage? Mayanthi, now can someone give me a thumbs up if that's it? I see thumbs up and head nods, perfect. And then the other thing is I need to move some windows around here, so I'm looking straight at you rather than off to the side. Perfect. So here's the American Anthropological Association's homepage. If you just go to americananthro.org, this is where you land. To navigate to Raising Our Voices, you'll hover over the attend events. You'll click on Raising Our Voices, and this will bring you to the ROV landing page, as we've called it.
Nate, this is Nell. I'm going to interrupt, I'm sorry, but I think the share screen has cut into a quarter. My Anthe, is that what you're seeing also?
Yes, it was fine before, Nate, before you said I need to look straight at the screen or something like that.
Before I moved it out of the way. Got it. All right, one more time. Thank you for interrupting me.
There we go. That's perfect.
Great. Okay, so here's the homepage. As we said, you'll hover over attend events and then click on Raising Our Voices, and that'll bring you right here to the Raising Our Voices landing page. This box here on the left-hand side is where everyone should start. It talks a little bit about what the format of the conference is, but more importantly, if you scroll down here, you'll see our event format types, and this is what my Anthe was just speaking about. So if we open up this page, a couple of things to call your attention to. At the top, here's our timeline for how we're going to build the program. And then here we have the first of the two major kinds of events. For the program, we have live streamed events, which will take place in real time over a 10-day period, minus the Sunday that takes place between those 10 days, between November 5th and November 14th. The first of the three types within the live stream is an interview, pretty self-explanatory, conversations or debates, and then roundtables and town halls. The difference between some of these is an interview, we're thinking of a moderator or a question asker, and one, maybe a few people answering questions. When we get into conversations and debates, this is where we're looking for larger conversations among larger groups of people, or two-sided conversations in the typical debate style format where, you know, people take opposite opposing views and sort of discuss that. Roundtables and town halls, the reason we put the town hall here is because we couldn't think of another word that we didn't already use in the annual meeting for roundtable. We realized that this is probably the only word you'll see twice, both in the annual meeting, in-person meeting, and the virtual format. But this is for a large group of people, up to 8, to discuss works and interrelated works, interrelated topics. We use town hall here because we really, really, really do not want participants to be reciting their papers and reciting their work. Everything we're thinking of and imagining for Raising Our Voices, we really want to be interactive and conversational rather than didactic and presentation styles. So that's how you can think about those three different types of live stream presentations. The other main category of presentations is view on demand events, and these will all be pre-recorded prior to the Raising Our Voices conference going live. So that doesn't mean it has to be pre-recorded at time of submission. As my Anthe said, you'll submit just a description abstract of what you're trying to do with your session. Once you're accepted onto the program, and you'll see this a little bit in a few minutes when we look at the platform for submission. Once you're submitted and then accepted onto the program, you'll have a list of tasks, and one of those tasks will be instructions on how you can give us access to your pre-recorded material or record that material right on the platform itself. So don't think that you have to have all of your material ready to go and pre-recorded to submit to a view on demand submission type. You'll have plenty of time later on before the event takes place in November to actually do that recording and develop and build that content. So the first of the three types here, four types here, is a podcast. So think all the favorite podcasts that we all listen to on all the various platforms. This is really just an audio version of a conversation that you'd like to have. A virtual poster, you'll upload a 1-image poster of your work, and then you can talk about it for up to 10 minutes. 3-minute thesis competition. The description here again is you'll have a 3-minute window of time to record an overview of your work and your thesis. And then we're recruiting a separate panel of judges who will go through and we'll judge those. A talk, this is probably the most parallel program submission type to the in-person annual meeting. This can be a talk up to 2 different co-presenters talking about their work and just explaining the work that they've done. Again, this can be up to 20 minutes. Talkback events are brand new to the virtual environment. Since all the view on demand events will not be taking place live, they won't have live capability for interaction with attendees. So what we're doing is when you submit a view on demand event, there'll be a checkbox that you can select if you're interested in hosting a talkback event. And what we'll do then is give you a 30-minute time block in a Zoom where you as the submitter and the participants of that session can join a Zoom call, and anyone who's viewed your work in the virtual platform can join that Zoom call as well and ask you questions and interact with you about your work for up to 30 minutes. So think of this as your 30-minute window to present your poster in the place-based face-to-face meeting, and people can stop by and engage with you about your work or engage with you about your session. All of these talkback events will be hosted outside of live stream session time slots, so they won't be competing with sessions that are happening in the live stream category, and they're not required, so they're entirely voluntary. But one talkback event will only be able to be connected to one submission. You can't buddy up with a couple of friends who have other submissions or other talks and host one talkback event. Everyone gets their own talkback event. The link for that talkback event and the scheduling information will then also be tied to the session within the online platform. So when I go in and I view your talk, I'll also see there if you've selected the talkback option when your talkback event will be. And then I can come back onto the platform at a later time and click that link to join the conversation with you. The next thing I want to draw your attention to, if you scroll back to the top of this page, is over on the left-hand navigation, terms and roles. A couple of changes for many of you who have submitted to the annual meeting before. You'll know that there were tons and tons of roles that you can take while you were on site at the annual meeting, and there were role limits to how many of those roles you could have within the program. We've made this very easy, very streamlined this year. So the terms up at the top of the page, I won't go through, but they'll sort of explain the language we use. But down here, about halfway down, you'll see the roles. So if you're submitting a live stream session, there's 2 kinds of roles that you can identify your participants to be. A lead contributing participant is that role that Mayanti was talking about, the organizer, the conversation leader, the person watching the clock, the person making sure you leave time for Q&A. That's the lead contributing participant. You can have up to up to 2 of them per session, but you don't need one. They're entirely optional. Everyone else on a live stream session would be considered a contributing participant. So each one of those submission types has their maximums listed when you go on the previous page for the submission types, but you are required to have at least 1 participant for all submissions. For view on demand, there's only 1 type of role. It's just a view on demand participant. So obviously every submission for view on demand needs 1. You'll need 1 for the 3-minute thesis competition, up to 2 for posters and talks, and up to 4 for podcasts. So we've made it really simple in terms of the roles you can have. In terms of limits, you're allowed to participate 1 time on any live stream session, and you can participate as many times as you want on as many sessions as you want in the view on demand category. And the reason we did this is the live stream sessions are going to be pretty competitive in order to get into, just due to available time slots that we have. But the view on demand programming is really that space for anyone who wants to engage with the program, anyone who wants to be included in the program or the conversation. The submission criteria for that, while just as professional and just as robust as the live stream, we are going to be accepting far more of the view on demand submission types, allowing more and more people to take part in those. So you can jump on each other's, you can submit multiples of your own, but it's really that chance for you to be creative and to try a bunch of different formats out if you'd like. I do see some questions coming through. I don't want you to think we're ignoring you, but we'll get to those questions just as soon as I walk through the submission portal really quickly. So the best way to get back to that is to just click on the home page on the left-hand navigation. And then scroll down about halfway and click here on Enter the Submission Portal. If you've ever submitted to the annual meeting before, this will look very similar. We're using the same platform. Don't worry, it's much simpler than the annual meeting submission process. We ask you for far fewer things, so that should be good news to many of you. You'll click over here if you already have a AAA profile. You'll click over here if you're brand new to the submission process or new to the AAA. Just as in our place-based meetings moving forward, you'll notice that meeting registration and membership to the AAA is not required for participants at the time of submission. You do not have to be a member. You do not have to register for this event in order to submit to this event. Once you submit, if you are accepted to the program, we will then follow up with you to renew or join the AAA membership, and then to register for the meeting at the discounted virtual rates. So since I do have a profile, I'll click here on Login, and I'll click Go. This is the main platform. You'll click here to begin a new submission. Some more information about whether or not you're eligible to participate. Everyone is eligible to participate. These are just those rules that we just discussed. And then links here if you want to take care of membership or registration earlier, you're free to do so. The first dropdown is going to ask you which of those two main categories you'd like to participate in. We'll click a View on Demand event. And then down here, this is the primary review section. So scroll through the list here and select the section of the AAA that most closely is related to the content of your submission. For simplicity, I'll just choose the first. Another note about this primary review section, this is the section of the AAA whose program chairs will review your submission. So if you are submitting a live stream session, it would be a great idea to reach out to that section's leadership and chat with them about what you're thinking. Each one of the program chairs for the sections is sort of trying to keep their hands around the submissions they're collecting. So as they begin to build their portion of the program, they know what's coming in. So if you have ideas or you want to work with that section to sort of make your submission more robust, or maybe there's a hole in your submission that you're looking for a collaborator on, work with those program chairs who we have posted online to engage with them in a way that helps that information flow freely between you as a submitter and the review section chairs as the ones ultimately selecting the program. They can help you bolster your submission and make sure that you're included in larger conversations that are having about the program. So once you select these two drop downs, sorry, this is a little counterintuitive. You scroll to the top and click Continue. You'll give it a submission title. So we're just going to say, podcast test submission. So I can find this and delete it from the system later. We'll choose podcast here. Again, if you need a second look at the types of descriptions of the events, you can click here and that'll open those up for you. Click Submit to move on to the next page. This list right here is called a task list. Many of you will notice that this is familiar. Additional review sections, you can choose one here if they apply. They're optional. I'm not going to choose any. The reason we would use these is if you choose a review section of the AAA, they're going to get your submission. And if for some reason you've chosen wrong or by mistake and it doesn't apply to them, they're going to want to know where to route your submission to next. So it's a good idea to make sure that you fill in a couple of those, but for the test, there's no need. Here's where you'll add a submission description. And here is that option to designate whether or not you'd like a talkback. Click Continue when you've entered your submission description. Again, 50 to 250 words is what we're looking for here. This tells the reviewers exactly what your session will be about. The next step is to add participants. This one can be a little tricky. So when you scroll down, all of the directions for how to do this are in this blue box up top. But when you scroll down, fight the urge to type in these boxes. We've worked with our platform as much as we can to tell them to get rid of this, but so far we've lost that fight. So hang with us for a moment and click on participant lookup. Type in the first name and a last initial or the last name of the participants you're looking to include and click on search. It'll pull up anyone in our system who matches those credentials. I'm looking to add Nell here, so I'll click on add participant. And you'll see it'll populate Nell into those typable fields. Make sure all of these are filled. You also have to select which role. And since we're in a view on demand submission, you can only add her as a view on demand participant. And you'll click on add participant. Once you do that, the page should refresh. And if you scroll down, you can see Nell here as a participant. But since this is my submission, I also have to make sure that I'm adding myself, or I won't show up on the program as someone who's a part of this submission. So there we are. You'll see here that I have the option to edit my own profile, but I can't edit Nell's profile. And what that means is Nell is going to get an email from the system in a next step where she'll have to go in and answer some questions about herself that are personal to Nell. And we'll capture that information confidentially, and then we'll interact with Nell based on any needs she may have for the virtual space. And she can answer other questions that the submitter possibly wouldn't know the answers to. A thing to note about participants that need to be added to your submission, they'll need to go to the AAA's website, americananthro.org, and create a username and password in order for them to show up in the system for you to for them to add them to your submission. If you have a journalist from the New York Times who is never going to become a member, don't worry, please send them to the website, have them log in, create a username and password so you can add them. So it doesn't mean they're signing up for membership. It doesn't mean that they're engaging with the AAA in any other way except to be placed on a submission for this. It's just the way our system has to call back from our AAA database to add participants in a way that makes sure we capture all the information we need to build the program. One of the things that my Anthe has at her disposal, just as our program chairs do for the place-based annual meeting, is registration and membership waivers. She has a number of them for folks that are not anthropologists that do want to engage with the program or do want to be on your sessions. You can email my Anthe about those, and she can walk you through the process and the steps for applying for one of those, which is really, I believe, she can correct me if I'm wrong here, but just a conversation with her about who those people are and how they're going to contribute to the program. But long story short, they must create a username and password and get entered into the system before you can click here and use the participant lookup feature. So once you're done adding participants, you'll click on Save. Apparently.
Hi, Nate. This is Nell. This is one of the program problems. You can't save participants until all profiles have been completed. And that's
Right.
also in the blue box instructions.
Right, those things I skipped. Thanks, Nell. So since I'm Nate, I can edit my own profile, which is right here. I'll click on mine and go down here. Everything with stars are necessary, so it looks like they're all correct. Role is correct here. Yep, and then click continue. This is where you'll agree to our use policies, our ethics code, our accessibility guidelines, and let us know whether or not you plan to upload your work to the Open Anthropology Research Repository, which we strongly recommend that you do. Now you'll see that my profile has been completed. So as Nell said, you can't click save until Nell goes in and gets her profile completed. So you'll scroll back up to the top and you'll click on tasks. That'll take you back to your task list. You'll see 1 has been done, 2 has been done, 3 is underway, that's what we were just on, and 4 is notify participants. Here you'll click on invite all participants. Nell will have just gotten an email with a link to my submission. And it's important that Nell uses that link in that email to log in and complete her profile. If she were to go in and log in just like I did, the system would think that she herself is trying to create her own submission, and it wouldn't connect her to the submission I'm on. So if any of your participants are looking for how to go in and complete their portion of your submission, it's important they click on the link in the email that the system sends them. And that email sometimes can get caught in spam or junk filters. So just remind them to check those places. The next is access and accommodation needs and requests. Again, this is something that Nell gets to complete on her own, but I need to go in and complete my own form here. So here we say you're welcome. You just basically have to agree to this statement that informs you of how to interact with us as the AAA if you need any access needs. And you'll see mine is complete, Nell's is incomplete. I won't be able to click complete task until Nell goes in and creates, completes her portion of this. So again, we go back to the task list, policies and consent. Again, I can go in and do mine. I've agreed. Nell needs to go in and do hers. Once your participants go in and they complete all of their own individual tasks, green check marks will appear next to 3, 5, and 6. Once that happens, you can click Save and Preview Submission. And then the following page, you'll have to click on Submit before your submission is actually complete. So that's how we walk through the submission process in order to submit for Raising Our Voices. I do know we have a number of questions here, so I will get started. Let me check one thing. Just checking the chat to make sure that we don't have any questions that snuck over there. So great, no questions in the chat. Question 1, for live stream submissions, can the general discussion include spoken Q&A in any comments or only typed text? That's a great question. For the platform that we're using for Zoom webinars, we prefer that the text is actually entered and then the moderators or the participants read that question the same way we're doing now and engage with the audience that way. Scott on our staff is our tech expert for Zoom, and I believe Scott will have the ability to unmute participants if they'd like to ask the question in person. Is that correct, Scott?
This is Scott, that is correct.
This is Nate. Great. So we will have that functionality if that's required or if that's what the session organizers would like to do. So that will exist. The next question, as we think about how to organize our sessions, it might be helpful to think more about the audience. Is this open to members only? Will some sessions be public facing? That's a great question. And I will take us back to the website and show you where some more information can be found. The fourth box down here, building the program, timeline, and pricing. If you click on learn more about registration pricing, we've added the information about how much it will cost. So as with everything for membership-based associations, non-member pricing is a little more expensive than member pricing. Because your discount is one of your member benefits. But we are inviting anyone to participate in this virtual program. The next question, I sent my presentation, but I did not my answer. 1 second.
I think the question, this is my Anthi.
In Brazil cannot speak English. So yes, you, it looks like you've submitted your submission. My Anthi actually brought to our attention the wonderful opportunity to include different languages within sessions. So if your session is chosen for a live streamed event, we will have the ability to have language translators right on the live streamed event, so people can.
Can I just say one thing here, Nate? Sorry, this is my auntie. The language justice organization that I have been in contact with, they only have the capacity to do Spanish. And this is something maybe Nate, you and Ed and I can talk about whether if there is a roundtable, a live streamed event that needs a different language interpretation, perhaps that is possible. But for those folks who want to think about that, perhaps get in touch with me and we can see what we can do. The other option for different languages is to do a view on demand event that is pre-recorded, so you can caption that yourself. There are free captioning technologies and translation technologies available, and if you have questions about that, you can email me.
This is me. Thanks very much for the clarification, my auntie.
Sure.
The next question, how are submissions being reviewed? There's quite a bit of confusion among our program folks trying to figure out whether or not they are required to review as they do for the annual meeting. Thanks for that question. So just as in the annual meeting, the section program chairs will be reviewing all of the submissions that get assigned to their section during the submission process. So if you remember in one of the first screens of the submission, I had to choose my primary review section. That designates which section my submission gets sent to for review. The program chair or chairs for that section then will review those programming submissions and make their choices based on the programming slots that they themselves have to fill in the program. As I said, the live stream sessions are going to be more competitive based on fewer slots available, while the view on demand sessions are going to be far less competitive, and we're looking to include as many of those in the program as possible. So yes, the program chairs for the sections will be doing the reviewing. If your program chairs for your section are confused or feel like they need more information, we've done some webinars with them already, and my auntie has joined us for those, and we have them recorded. Please have them reach out to Deborah on our staff. Her information is available on our website. But her email address, she can be reached at aaameetings with an S at americananthro.org. And she'd be happy to connect with your program chairs and clear up any confusion or questions they may have. The next question, is there a way to automatically import the previous application rather than create everything from scratch? Thanks. Great question. The answer is simple. There is not a way. And the reason there is not a way is because your submission should not be identical to the one you've submitted for a face-to-face meeting. Our submission types are specifically designed to be very different from a place-based meeting. So while it may be similar, it may cover the same topics, it shouldn't be the same. So there's no way to duplicate your submission from the 2020 annual meeting through the Raising Our Voices platform. Next question, can we register for both live session and on-demand sessions? If yes, then how do we go about registering it? Do we register twice? Great question. You are more than welcome to submit to both kinds of programming. And yes, you would just go in, you'd complete one submission and then log in again. You'll see that first homepage, and I can probably show it to you here. You click on home, you'll see your submissions that you've been working on. So here's the one I just started. But if you'd like to start another one, you'll just click here and do the process all over again. And you can do that for as many times as you want, with the understanding that you can only be on one live stream submission, but you can do, as many view on demand submissions as you'd like. Next question, for a view on demand presentation, do we need to submit a video with our proposal? Great question. No, the only thing we'll ask for is that session description, 50 to 250 words. And then after you're accepted, you'll get a separate task list that will walk you through how to create your content or link us to the content that you've already created, which would be your pre-recorded video. Next question. These are comments. One moment. Let me see if there is a next question.
I think there's a question, Nate, about the pricing.
Yep, at the top. There it is. Great, thanks. ASA is hosting the virtual meetings starting this weekend. Members are free and non-members are $25. Why is our pricing so much more? Great question. Many of the sections have done, as Mayanthi talked about in her opening remarks, she was the program chair for Distribute 2020, which was a joint effort between two sections to do essentially a live conference, a virtual conference online. There's a couple reasons why the costs for a national level, meaning an entire association-wide conference, are so much more. One, the volume of the program is a lot higher and a lot greater. There will be about 160 live stream sessions taking place over 10 days. Each live stream session will be competing with 4 others, and there would be 4 time slots per day taking place. So that's 16 a day for 10 days to get to 160. So the volume just creates a lot more cost to host all of that in a way that's organized and easy to navigate for the attendees. The other side of that is that we process far more in terms of volume in submissions for a AAA-wide conference. And because of that, there are significant costs to the platforms we need to use to collect all that information, review all that information, and then pump that information into a platform that would then again display it in a way that makes it easy to navigate and easy to interact with for you as an attendee on the back end. So it's basically a problem of scale. The larger you make the conference, the more cost there is to that conference. We actually are not looking to make money on this conference. We decided that this was something the AAA wanted to do to keep members engaged and keep a community close during a time where we can't be together and we can't meet in person. So we're not running this for a profit. We're running this to essentially cover costs so we can provide this to the membership. Next question. What is the preparation time frame for the view on demand? So that's a good question. We have a timeline that currently stipulates announcements will go out. The program will be announced September 23rd. You will then have from September 23rd until 2 weeks before the program starts on November 5th to complete your program material. So you'll have from November 23rd through 2 weeks before the start. And I'm opening a calendar now. November 23rd to, September 23rd to October 22nd. So about a month to prepare your materials. Next question, is the on-demand 20-minute talk option, if only one participant so far, oneself the presenter, how do I convey this is the participants section of the submission? Okay, so I believe your question is if there's a talk, if you're submitting a talk and it's only you, how do you convey this? You simply add yourself as the view on demand participant. You don't have to add a second participant, even though you can have up to 2. So you would just add yourself as the presenter in the view on demand participant role. And then you would proceed through your submission. Obviously, you wouldn't have to wait for anyone else to complete their portions of the submission. You would then just be able to click through all the next steps and then proceed to submission. And my apologies with thinking ASA was a section. That's the American Sociological Association. So I apologize for misspeaking there. All right, so we have about 7 minutes left before we're at the end of our time. Is there anyone else with any questions for either the AAA from a technical side, my Anthe from a program chair standpoint? We'd be happy to answer those. If not, I'm also happy to give you a few minutes of your day back. All right. When will the recording be made available? We will have that probably in the next couple of days, and then Deborah will go ahead and upload that to our website. It'll be available right in the same submission box where we started in the beginning of the presentation and the screen share. Looks like we have a last minute question here. If your podcast includes multiple guests, then do they all need to be listed in the submission? Yes, anyone you plan to include on your submission needs to be included in the submission so that when we set up the Zoom webinars, each one of them is added to the webinar as a participant. If not, the only way they would be able to interact with you would be from the attendee view of the webinar, which is how you're all interacting with this webinar right now. So we need all participants entered and included in the submission. That way they can have the proper credentialing for the live stream event when it takes place.
There's another question here. Go ahead.
Is there anything like a quota for sections or invited sessions like the annual meeting? That's a great question. So every section will get at least 2 live stream sessions. Of those 2 base sessions that they're given, they can choose to curate one if they'd like. And what that means is they can go out to people in their section and put together a session, like an invited session. Or they can choose to use both of those slots for on-demand content, or excuse me, stream content from submissions. So that choice is totally up to them. Above those 2, we'll take the remaining total of live stream sessions that are available, and we'll give each section the percentage of that total that's available that they received submissions. So if you get 40% of the submissions to your section, you'll get 40% of the availability of the live stream programming dedicated to your section, and then you can choose from your submissions which ones you'd like to see live streamed. Above that 2, where you could curate 1, you're also able as a section to curate up to a quarter of your total. So if you get 12 more sessions, bringing you up to 14, instead of curating just 1, you can curate a quarter of 14 or 3. Another question was, what if the participants are in the pre-recording but want to be attendees and not participate? So I'm assuming this is for a view on demand submission. If they do not want to participate in a talkback event or in anything like that, they just want to come into your podcast and offer some remarks, and they do not want to be listed in the program at all, then you're welcome to include them in your recording and not list them in your submission. That's entirely up to you. But if they're going to be listed in the program, or if they want to be included in the talkback participation as a presenter, as someone who was on the submission, then they do need to appear on the submission. There was a comment that just came in. I would be in favor of a few high-level sessions, perhaps presidential, that are open to the public or streamed openly via YouTube. Otherwise, are we really raising our voices, or are we continuing to talk into an echo chamber? I believe this comment was from Cindy. Cindy, thanks so much for that feedback. This is something that we're considering. We do have some presidential sessions. We do have some invited sessions, so to speak, that Myanthi is helping us curate, as well as leadership from the AAA and the AAA board. We are thinking about how best to make those sessions available, or at least one or some of those sessions available. So thank you for this feedback. It is something we're thinking a lot about. We just have to make sure that it works well with the platform, and that when we give access to one, we don't give access to all inadvertently. So we're working through that, but please stay tuned, and we'll certainly communicate whether or not that's something we're able to do. Will view on demand be open to the public? So this is sort of like the question before. No, none of the view on demand will be open to the public right now. We are exploring the option of opening some of the live stream sessions to the public. Alrighty, well, we're right up at the bottom of the hour here, so thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and your attendance. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us at aaameetings@americananthro.org. There's multiples of us on that email account waiting for your questions and waiting to get back to you. So thanks very much again. We look forward to seeing your submissions. And please direct anyone who has further questions to this recording, which will be available on our website in the next couple of days. Thanks again, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.